and salutations. Please allow me to welcome you to Masterpiece Theater. I'm your host, Obba Babatunde, and here on Masterpiece Theater, we celebrate the very best in the spoken word, the written word, and the word expressed in song. In addition, we pay tribute to the talented artists that bring those words to life. Each week here on Masterpiece Theater, I have the pleasure of engaging brilliant artists in one-on-one conversation that explores the great treasures and these writers and actors and singers and dancers possess, as we spotlight their artistry that illuminates us all. So I say, a very warm welcome. Today is November 6th, and if you have not yet been to the polls, I implore you, please, please, please get out and vote. You matter. What you think and feel matters, and so does your vote. Please, get to the polls, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me tell you about this past weekend for myself. I had the extraordinary pleasure of seeing two remarkable theater pieces. Now, the theater pieces I refer to are two plays that feature two women, two shows, one stage. Now, by that, I don't mean there are two women in each show. I mean that there's one woman per show, each performing their one-woman show. Both pieces were wonderful, and I have the pleasure of having both ladies in the studio with me here today. My guests are the beautiful and talented Chrystee Pharris and the sagacious and beguiling Natasha M. Dixon. Now, before we get the show started, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who these ladies are. Chrystee Pharris. Many of you will remember Chrystee as Simone Russell on the NBC soap opera Passions. And after leaving Passions, she breathed life into the character Kylie, who was JD's girlfriend on the hit comedy series Scrubs. She has appeared in a variety of feature films and theatrical productions and television shows. Recently, she performed the role of Rena in the great play written by August Wilson, Jitney, as well as being kind enough to be my red carpet host on the 25th anniversary of this year's Educating Young Minds Gala. A proud graduate of Emerson College, when Chrystee is not acting, she is generously donating her time and energy to traveling around the world, being a motivational speaker, determined to inspire young people to further their education, set goals for themselves. In her one-woman show entitled In Search of O, Chrystee's play explores the fantasy of waiting until marriage to have sex. Now, she takes us on a magical journey, and as she peels back the layers of the fantasy versus the reality of that experience. We will get into what that journey is all about in a little while. But let me tell you a little bit about Natasha M. Dixon, writer, producer, actor, singer. Some of her credits include starring roles on ER, Third Watch, CSI, The Last Adam, Chat Room, and Blade Sister. In addition to her acting achievements, Natasha possesses several skills that enrich her repertoire. For example, she produced and starred in the film Can't Let Go. The film received glowing recognition in the film festival circuit, along with being televised nationwide. As a writer, she has been the entertainment columnist for the Houston Sun. She has written a children's book, The Adventure of Jordan, 2 screenplays, Country Love and the Clarinet. In addition, she has an untitled book of poems and her one-woman show, which, like I said, I saw this past weekend, Evolution of a Love Addict. She is a single mother who is very proud of her son, who is enrolled in studies at Carnegie Mellon University. Chrystee and Natasha, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for gracing us with your presence today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, great
Please,
show.
tell me, how is it that you two guys found each other and decided to put these two shows together?
Ooh. Chrystee and I met on the set of Moesha years ago. And she'd invited me to an acting program at the church. And then we became acquaintances at that time. But then back in 2003 or 4, we actually became really tight friends.
I actually called upon her when I was thinking about getting a divorce, really, which started this whole In Search of O. And I called her up and I said, listen, I might need a place to stay. And so she
Some
was
changes
like,
are going to be made.
yeah, and she was like, I'm on a date. Do you need me to come home? And from that moment, I was like, this is my girl. And we've been like this ever since.
Wow.
Yeah. So and then of course we started doing the writing and writing our one-person show. And then one day this woman said, I'm not even finished writing it. I'm getting the theater and I'm putting up the show. Didn't even have a director. And next you know, I was like, well, can I tag along? And I was like, I'll come do it with you, and then it was birthed and we sold out, all four.
We sold out all 4 shows.
All 4 shows. Started with 2 weekends, and then because those 2 were sold out, we extended it to the following, and sold out both of those. Yeah.
Now these shows seem to be based on your personal lives. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, Chrystee, why don't you start us off and just tell me a little bit about the inspiration of what gave birth to In Search of O.
Well, it is about waiting. In Search of O is about waiting until marriage at 27 to have sex, and the fantasy versus the reality of that experience. So I did wait until I was married my best friend that I had known since I was 12 years old, and then what I thought sex was going to be like for me, it wasn't quite that experience. So that's where the whole vision of this piece, because it's not just about talking about sex and searching for this orgasm. It's really about having a connection and relationship and connecting with the other person. We always think it's about this, but it's really about connection. The other thing is that I grew up in a household where not one of the women in my family, and there were 5, including my mother, aunts and my mother, none of them talked about sex with me. And so here I am, at 27, about to get married, and I know nothing about sex, like not anything except for what I saw on TV and what my girlfriends talked about and what I dreamed about. And that really wasn't necessarily my experience, but I also got married without really being in love.
There was also something that I identified that you talked about in the piece, and we're not going to give too much of away because we want everyone to go and see it. I mean, we're going to talk about when it's running. It's running this coming weekend again, yes? So we want to make sure everybody goes out and sees this, and I really mean it. You got to see this. It is a healing. Both properties are really healing for a number of reasons. When you see them, as we talk more about them, you'll understand why. But one of the things that I remember you talking about, the fact is that one thing that you were told was, you're not going to be able to walk tomorrow. It's going to be painful. Now, so identify now. You're saying that they didn't talk about sex, but there was one person. That was your
2
people, but your aunt was one of them.
Yes, I mean there's creativity in that.
But, okay.
But I've had several people who just were like, oh my gosh, it hurts so bad, or oh my God, it's gonna hurt, and oh, you shouldn't have waited, you should have just had sex early. And so again, you have the excitement, and yet you still have the fear of, oh my gosh, what is it gonna be like, and is it gonna hurt, and what is my experience gonna be?
Right. This is one of the things that's very interesting, because the sense of communication, and do our parents have that, or family members have that dialogue with us about sex? Because is it taboo? Well, it's not. If we don't talk about it, maybe it'll never happen, or it won't happen too soon. And so that's why your piece is really fascinatingly important, and it was very, 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 very informative. Notice I said very, 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 because it was very, very, very informative, and things that people really don't talk about from a female standpoint of view. Natasha, same question.
Yes. Question
was how did this piece come about? What was the inspiration for it?
Well, I had my son a month before my 19th birthday. So I was pregnant in high school, or right after high school. And I always knew I wanted to encourage and empower women, because I was never really taught my value. I was never really taught about relationships, what a real relationship is supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like. So after I had my son, I figured, okay, well, maybe I can talk to young girls so that they can know their value and their worth, and not get into the same predicament I got in. So I started, writing, amateur writing. And then I moved to Los Angeles in '97, and I took a one-woman show workshop. And I continued to write. And I just began to write my story. And back in '99, I began to write poetry as well, just randomly. They were in different books. Well, what I did one day is I just got all of my writings together, all of them, and started to look at them, and I realized there was a pattern. And the pattern that I saw was this love-crazed young woman. Every single poem was about, oh, I love you, and you're just amazing. And I couldn't remember who the guy was. And then some guys I would think, well, who's he? I want to go back and talk to him. And then I would remember, oh, no, not him. So I realized, okay, this is a challenge. After my second divorce, I realized I had to look in the mirror and ask myself, I couldn't keep blaming the guys that I got with. I had to ask myself, what is this problem? Why am I allowing guys like that in my life?
Right.
And I went to counseling. That is my thing to everybody. Go and get some dang counseling.
She canceled me.
So I went to counseling. And I realized that I had to break the cycle.
Absolutely.
And in the counseling, I began to look in the mirror, which was not a fun thing to do in the beginning. And I continued to write.
Wonderful.
And that is, how my show came about. I got my degree in psychology since I had my son dead week freshman year of college, and I went back and got my degree in psychology because I believe there is healing in these stories. There's healing in telling your story.
Absolutely.
So I want to be able to usher people into that.
That's a perfect segue into my next question, which was, I found it equally as interesting watching the audience members and how they begin to respond, male versus female, as these two, as you both did your shows and these stories were being told. Because it's clear that it's not something that is often talked about, and talked about in this open, free fashion. I'll jump to you, Natasha, because we're talking about your piece right now. That you identify what is almost, I guess, speed dating, at Starbucks, and you have this. It was so interesting because I watched as you went through date number one. Now, what is it? Puff,
pass.
Puff, pass. Now, we're going to get a chance to hear these ladies do some of the stuff live here in the studio. I'm so thrilled that you guys would be willing to do that. But, it was these dates and these boyfriends, they're numbered. And as you begin to identify the different characters, it was funny as I looked around the audience, there were a couple of guys that were like, oh, man, that's me she's talking about.
I had a guy come up and tell me that once. He's like, you described like 5 people I've been in my life.
It's really fascinating, And so now that leads to the question for both of you, that the response, male to female, how has that been in terms of how they respond to the material?
I've had great response from both men and women. When I wrote my piece and started looking at it, I thought, okay, I don't want this to be another chick flick. I don't know what you call that for theater, but another chick flick. So I hired a male director. But I've had men come up to me afterwards saying they enjoyed the piece. It was not male bashing. They were fascinated by that. They loved the candor. They loved the honesty. My piece is a lot of internal dialogue, the stuff we think about but don't say. And they actually enjoyed that. It gave them a little bit of insight. I've had long conversations and emails with people just based on that. They were able to talk about what they're going through in their relationships. Or one gentleman came up to me at my last show in San Jose and said he literally turned to his wife when my show was over and apologized.
Wow.
And we were in a lounge like club, and he said, I'm serious. And the wife was like, yeah, he apologized. They didn't go into detail about what it was, but it was a healing moment for them. And that's priceless.
How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that?
So both men and women receive, men and women receive the piece very well.
Chrystee?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the blessing for me in it is that first of all, when I first wrote the piece and performed, because I was like, oh, it's not ready, there's nothing, it's just, no. And Stacy Chaikin, who I took the class with.
Yeah, we took class with her together.
Yes. And so she encouraged me to get up and do the performance. And when I received the laughter and the tears from the audience, I was like, wow, okay, well, maybe that's just because some of these people knew me. Then I did it again. And people said that after the show, they talked about it for hours. That was the conversation for the rest of the night when they went to dinner.
Right.
And then as I continued to keep traveling and doing it at colleges and different locations, I always know that what I know about my piece, where you finally get to a place in your adulthood where you accept who you are, where you are, and you pat yourself on the back for what you've done and what you've accomplished. And for this piece, I'm very proud because the kids and the people ask the right questions after they see the piece.
Right.
And that to me is the most important thing, because I know that they're walking away with something. I did my job. And the last thing that I want to say is that I get a lot of women, especially in not just the African American community. That's not true, because I had a conversation with some people this weekend. But a lot of the women will come up and they'll say, that's my story. That's my story. Wow. And then they'll sit there and they'll talk about their experience and their orgasm and this and wet and, and I'm just like, or lack thereof, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow, but for me, I'm just like, I will receive. If you want to put it on me to have this conversation, do it. That's what I'm here for. And that's what the whole piece is about.
Well, while you mention that, why don't we talk about that a little bit in terms of the title, In Search of O, and O stands for?
The orgasm.
The orgasm. And you say women talk about the fact that it's having it or the lack thereof. Again, a subject matter which very seldom is spoken out in open. Yeah. There was even a statistic, if I remember. I was paying attention. I love that production. I love these productions. There was a statistic about, why don't you talk a little bit about that, Chrystee, about, first of all, that one, how important the In Search of the O is, and statistically, what did you find when doing your research?
When I was doing research for myself before I was writing this, but a lot of women during the 60s is when the big movement came in, and women wanted to start exploring their sexuality, because they, at that time, women were not considered to be able to have an orgasm. It was just all about pleasing the man, and that women didn't get this pleasure. And then at some point in time, things changed. But they said 60% of women were not experiencing orgasms.
Wow.
And that's when I said, oh, well, at least I'm not alone, At least I'm not the only one, And so then that's when you go through the exploring. And what I found fascinating, which some of it is in my show, is that some of the women in my family had not experienced orgasms, and were in loveless marriages, and and stayed in their relationships for over 50 years. Not to say everyone was, or that stayed that way, but some of them, they all got pregnant before they got married, so they stayed in these relationships because that's what they did during that time period.
Do you think that in part a contributing factor to the failing of the marriage may have been the lack of satisfaction in the sexual satisfaction?
Well, I think, and I'm only talking about one side of my family, I think that that's definitely a part of it, but I also believe that because, for instance, my grandmother getting pregnant very young, not married, I think that contributed to not being able to have a relationship with this person and seeing if they really... once she got pregnant, you get married.
Right.
So I don't think she really had a relationship, a loving relationship. It was convenient. And this is, I'm going to stay in this marriage because I have kids. I have 5 girls, So I think that also contributed, but I also believe that because she probably wasn't in love, that also hindered her being able to have this orgasm.
Now, we're talking about grandma, but what about today?
I mean, young people.
Do you think that the problem still is? Because there is a presumption that one thing goes with the other, that, you know, people get married because they're in love, and then they have a successful relationship, and a part of that successful relationship is the sexual aspect of the relationship. You know what I mean? So, I mean, very often when we talk about these subject matters, we often talk about things in the past, but I think that your pieces are completely relevant today.
Yeah. Yes.
And I want to make sure that we are uncovering the fact that we're not just talking about the antiquated aspect of it, but that this is current. But
I do think it's current. Okay. I do think that a lot of young people, a lot of young girls and guys are dealing with so much with the media, what they see, what some of the rappers and even being an actor, some of the things that we're portraying on TV, that some of these young people feel like they have to live up to this expectation, and they're not. But they're playing as though they are.
Absolutely.
And that's why they're unsatisfied.
I actually read an article about a week and a half ago that dealt with the importance that females of 8 and 9-year-old females, the importance of sex appeal is to them.
Yes.
You know, I mean, if you think about that, 8 and 9-year-olds identifying and thinking, well, I've got to be sexy. But as what we talked about, what does that mean? What is sex appeal, and what is being sexy? And is sex appeal associated with sex? And, so we don't get a chance to really identify really what it is that we're talking about. Chrystee, I'm going to ask you if you would be kind enough. Would you do one of the little pieces from the show so that the listening audience can get a taste of what they're going to see when they come to see you guys this weekend?
Absolutely. In Search of O. Everybody talks about how incredible it is. I want to know, what am I doing wrong? Why have I not achieved it yet? I waited until I was married at 27 to have sex. I knew nothing but my fantasy dreams, how my husband on the night of our honeymoon gives me that look of, wow, look how beautiful you look in that white, sexy nightgown. Come here, girl. He kisses my cheek, the top of my forehead, my lips. His hands slide down my breast to my waist. He's loving, gentle. Everything else happens the way that it does in the movies, where both lovers close their eyes, screaming in ecstasy. Yes! My first time did not happen that way. I'm laying in the bed in the hotel room while my new husband of 5 hours is in the shower. I'm nervous as hell. I don't want to have sex. I'm not ready to have sex yet. I don't even love him. Don't get me wrong. I love him. I'm just not in love with him. And it does not help that as I'm leaving the wedding reception, my best girlfriend, Terry, she's the queen of sex. She has sex with all the celebrity men, says, Chrystee, I don't want you to have sex yet. You're like little sister Chrystee the virgin. You're supposed to stay that way. Girl, it is going to hurt. You are not going to be able to walk tomorrow.
Yes. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. But listen, we're going to come right back. I'm going to take a moment to take a little pause for the cause for a commercial break. And we're going to come back with my guests. They are 2 women, 2 shows, 1 stage. I'm talking about the phenomenal ladies that you're hearing on the show today. Please stay tuned with us. Be right back. All right, that was the masterful music of Mr. Kevin Toney from his new CD, American Sweet 3. And if you care about your America, then you need to get out and vote. If you haven't been to the polls, please, 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 everyone, get out and cast that vote. It is very important. This election is extremely important, probably maybe one of the most important elections of our lifetimes. So please, get out and vote. Now, back with my guests, Chrystee Pharris and Natasha M. Dixon. Natasha.
Yes, darling.
Let's talk a little bit about Evolution of a Love Addict. I love that title. I love that title.
She does evolve.
Yes, she does evolve. And that's important because she does evolve. Now, your piece, it really goes on a journey where I get to meet different individual guys, right?
Yes.
Now, first of all, I had mentioned earlier in the show about this speed dating, if you will, with you being at Starbucks, right? Now, tell me a little bit about how you came up with this idea. So just let the audience in on what I'm referring to when I say, your times at Starbucks.
Well, after my divorces, I did a lot of dating. And back in 2003, I ran into a girl, and she told me about this woman on Oprah who had dated 100 guys. So I set out on that quest. So that's where the numbers come in. But after
I love that.
Yeah, that's where the numbers come in. But after my divorces, I would go through this stage of trying to plug someone into the new slot. So this is before even the Oprah information. But I was always trying to plug someone into the new slot. I was dating different guys, trying to plug them in the new slot. Well, then when I heard about the girl who dated 100 guys, I dated like 36 guys in 6 weeks or something ridiculous, and I was tired. And absolutely no sex, right. But I was just like, do I have to go on another date?
And that's how the Starbucks situation?
That's how Starbucks came up, because with dating these guys, they weren't really creative. They weren't saying, what do you want to do, where do you want to, or making up dates of where we should go. They didn't do that. So they would ask me where I wanted to go, and the safest place for me was the Starbucks. That was safe. It was quick. Also, if I didn't like him, Starbucks is usually like a 15-minute date, unless you like them and you can extend it.
Right.
Right.
Okay, now that's a perfect segue. All right. Could you give us a little bit of one of the pieces that somehow maybe includes that? Because I know that there was a piece about the puff puff.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I can do that?
Well, anyone that you'd like, but it gives us just a little bit of the colors of the individuals that you would encounter.
Alrighty. And you don't want puff puff pass?
Yes.
Oh,
that's
okay.
fine. That's fine.
All right. The Diary of a Love Addict. Puff, puff, pass. Addicted to the rush you get in the beginning of the love journey, it's like chain smoking love. Like when the cigarette you're smoking begins to fade, and before it completely goes out, you light another one. Any little sign of dissension? Puff, puff, pass. It's time to move on. I want to get high tonight. High on love, that is. You know that thing that makes you quiver? That adrenaline rush, that chemical reaction? Then real life sets in. Puff, puff, pass. The following names have been changed to protect the smoked up. There was Ohio Psycho. At first it was a beautiful state of delirium. Then he forgot to take his meds. Puff, puff, pass. There was Bottled Up Director in the making. The first date we sat in a room gazing at each other while movie soundtracks played in the background. He watched too many pornos. Puff, puff, pass. There was Freak of the Week, who was precisely that. Wasn't really a puff, puff, pass, was more of a puff, pass. Then there was Director. Director and I have amazing communication. I just can't get past the feeling he communicates with a lot more women than myself. Puff, puff, pass. Then there was Long Beach. It was fun while it lasted. Then one day I walked out of his house and never called him again. The funny thing is, he never called me either. Puff, puff, pass. There was Want-to-be director, who flashed in an instant from future candidate to peer counseling client. Puff, puff, pass. Director came back. I just can't get past the feeling there are others. Puff, puff, pass. Then there was Boston. Boston was afraid of his own shadow. Something about him never quite clicked. I puff, puff, pass so fast I think I missed that hit. Then there was other director. Hot. Passionate. Until he couldn't commit. Puff, puff, pass. I want to get high tonight.
I love it. I love it. Puff, puff, pass. I mean, they're there and then they're gone.
Yes.
You know, and but interestingly enough, again, you know, beautifully done, by the way, ladies, both of you.
Thank you.
Really, really, really beautifully done. Listen, audience, I'm gonna open up the lines for some calls if you'd like to call and talk to these ladies or talk about your experience with Puff Puff Pass or any of the In Search of O, anything you'd like to talk about. The number is 323-965-1600. Again, that's 323-965-1600. And again, reminding you, please get out and vote. Very, very important. Very, very important. So now, in doing the play, tell us more about this. The one thing that you both, I think, I wanted to address is that you both talked about the fact that, and what I got was that it was a healing experience. So, in personally, if you can, in a few short words, tell us how doing these plays have been beneficial to you in your own healing process.
It's been phenomenal for me because in searching why I did certain things, I had to go back to my childhood. And there were some family issues that I had to air the dirty laundry, so to speak. And there's something that secrets do to people, and I think it kills you from the inside. And when you have this secret, there's usually a false guilt and shame attached to that. Okay. And when you have the false guilt and shame attached to it, you tend to continue the pattern. You tend to make wrong choices. I use wrong lightly. But what doing my show did was expose that, the truth of things. I'm not going to be ashamed of what I may have experienced as a child, but it was also very healing for my family. My father, I have two brothers outside of my parents' marriage, and it was a healing process for my family. Okay. My parents received it well. They came to opening night, but it also allowed my father to kind of release that shame because he's a great man. He took care of his family. My parents are still together. But there was something attached to me just saying it, saying it out loud, and no longer being a secret.
Right.
And it was able to release.
The secret had created, it was part of the earlier part of your life that this happened. So it became part of a blueprint.
Yes.
Which then ultimately became a trigger.
Yes.
And so when something would happen, this issue would come up, and here you found it manifesting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what it seems to be. You found this manifesting itself in your relationships.
Oh, totally.
And causing you to then conduct yourself in a particular way that would then affect those relationships.
Yes. You know? I chose based on that experience. I made choices based on that experience.
So I think one of the things that we all can look at, and it's not just in relationships, but in general, if you, I like to talk about the fact that if you look in the dictionary under the word trauma, you'll see every definition save slavery. Trauma is something that one goes through, that they experience, that is outside of their normal, that which they identify as being their normal life pattern. And thusly, We've heard about post-traumatic stress disorder,
Yes.
things that people go and get treatment for. Well, if you're thinking about slavery and the fact that one had no right to their own existence, that a husband could watch his wife be molested, the husband could be murdered, killed, their child could be taken from them, do you think one might have experienced a degree of trauma?
Oh,
But do you
definitely.
think that those people ever had an opportunity to go to therapy to deal with that?
No.
So it becomes something that then is passed on.
Yes.
And then ultimately then finds itself living in the blueprint of someone's life, and therefore we find ourselves enacting or reacting or being triggered by something when we think it's just the way we are. That's just the way it
Yeah,
is.
it's not.
You know what I mean? And that's not. So I was happy to hear you talk about the fact that if you identify there's an issue, go seek help.
Get
that there's
counseling.
get counseling. You know, there's no shame in the game. You know, Chrystee, tell me a little bit about your experience as it pertained to the healing process of you doing your production.
Well, I remember doing the first time that I did the show when I, for the workshop, I remember like crying for 2 hours afterwards, I mean, it was just, it not only healed me from, the divorce and the shame and then being a Christian and feeling like, oh gosh, look at all the disappointment and what people are going to say. And then I was in the entertainment and what are people going to say there? And then my career started to kind of get a little funky just because I was, divorce, like it was written on top of my forehead, and when it wasn't, but in my mind, that's what I was thinking, oh my God, everybody's looking at me, and I went through that. And so for me, it healed, it healed that part of it to be able to let go and to forgive, not only
Yes.
forgive my ex, but also forgive myself. And I think that was the most important thing for me, was to be able to forgive myself and let it go and not take on all this responsibility. But also, too, it helped me to not worry about other people. It helped me to find my sexuality, to find myself as a woman, and really own my beauty. Which I did not do. My mother's gorgeous, but my mother did not believe that she was beautiful until she was like 30-something. Right. And so for me, I would always try to hide, like, oh yeah, okay, I'm, okay, thank you for saying I'm beautiful, but I would never own up to it. And now, as a woman, I'm like, no, I am gorgeous, I am stunning, and so are you. You know what I mean? And whether you see it or not, I know what I am and I know what I can bring to the table.
Absolutely.
And I think where I am in life, I know what I can bring to the table in a relationship, and I no longer worry so much about other people or the guy. If the relationship doesn't work, I don't take responsibility for it. It just wasn't meant for us to be.
And say, I think we also then through this are able to identify that beauty doesn't stop with a physicality.
Exactly.
It doesn't stop with an appearance. That the person could be exceptionally attractive on the outside, but if they've got these triggers and that blueprint is not
Yes.
straight,
Right.
it's not going to be very pretty in the aftermath.
Right.
We're going to come back and talk more about this. Ladies and gentlemen, please call in if you want to talk to the ladies or talk about any of these things. The number is 323-965-1600, and we'll come right back. Stay there.
I got a crush on you. Yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah.
I got a crush on you. I don't know
I got a
what to
crush
do.
on you.
I got a crush on you, on you, on you. Have you ever had a crush? I mean a real live crush. Butterflies type crush. I have. Ooh. And let me tell you.
I got a crush on you.
His lips mesmerized me, caught my attention like a red candy apple at a carnival waiting to be picked, licked, and bitten. And I'm not sure if I should ignore the desire to kiss him and then ask his name. All I know is somehow, some way, I need our paths to meet because his eyes are shining my way like a bright sun ray, inviting me to bask in his view. And I imagine myself whispering soft, sweet nothings in his ear, making him blush. And if a crush can happen at first sight, this has to be more than a glance meeting. And by the way that I'm looking at him. I wonder if he can feel my tongue, taste his neck. Ooh, his neck, oh so strong, looking like a super waffle cone, bronzed and beautiful, lickable, kissable. I bet he tastes like a sugar cane, and although it's against the game, I would love to leave a trail of passion marks from his neck to his chest and back. Am I bad for that? I mean, ladies, picture him. Face so handsome, he belongs on the cover of a magazine. Haircut, well-groomed, his scent alone had me coming across the room. His style is so fly, he reminds me of a cloudless sky. His shirt hangs flawless across his broad shoulders. His arms make me want to be the her he is holding. Thighs so thick, I couldn't resist momentarily straddling them in a daydream until his taut frame pressed against my soft, warm invite. Telepathically, I wanted him to sense my urgent attraction. Mission, it was his back I was scratching, followed by a gentle massage of feathered kisses. Almost afraid to know what I'd be missing if I didn't step to him. Compelled by curiosity, could possibly his personality engulf me as did his physique. Unique was everything about this man I wanted to know. So, after my brief realization of our lovemaking, turning fantasy into reality, I cleared my throat and introduced myself. Hi, I've got a crush on you.
I got a crush on you. On you. I got a crush on you. I don't know what to do. Thinking about the things you do. On you. Ooh, yeah.
Yes. That was the voice and writings of Inspire and the music of her producer, Ricardo Love. The track titled Crush on You from Inspire's CD release, Crystallis, reminds me of the fact that these two ladies, as they talk about their experiences, that lady had a crush on somebody. And as you could have been in the studio and watching these ladies as those words flowed from Inspire's lips. Was that wonderful or what?
It was wonderful.
I could see it all.
You could see it. You could remember when you said it and thought it. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that plenty of times.
I want to open up the lines again. Please call in if you want to talk to these ladies. 323-965-1600. All right. Listen, Chrystee, I had mentioned that in the production that you do a pole dance. Now, I remember sitting there watching and going, wow, she's really doing that pole dance. You know? Now, is that something that was in your bag of tricks, or was that something that you learned for the production, or, how did you come into the whole pole dancing
Yeah,
deal?
Well, a week before I was making the transition of leaving my situation, I took a pole dancing class. I actually was watching Oprah. And they were talking about it on Oprah, and I was like, oh, I have to go take a class. And it actually gave me a lot of confidence, and I loved it because I had one perception of what pole dancing was, about, and women dancing on a pole, versus going and seeing the beauty in it and seeing these women who were big and women who were white and black and old and young, all sexy and beautiful in their own right. And it was phenomenal. And it just, I ended up, continuing on. I was like, I'm going to take this class.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you this. And ladies and gentlemen, she's got on these huge boots with these huge heels.
8 inches.
8 inches. And she's killing the game with this pole dancing. But what's funny about it is that your Chrystee goes to take a pole dancing class from someone. I was wondering if you would be kind enough to bring the someone who teaches the dance class, the pole dancing class with us.
Hello, Poppy. How are you? Did you want to come in here and take a class or anything like that? No? Now, why you give me that look, Poppy? You don't like it? You don't want to see me up on the pole? Now, this pole right here is Hector. Me and Hector have plenty of fun. Oh, me and Hector, he gives me things that a lot of men can't give me. So, anyway, anybody want to come take... Oh, no. Come on in. Come take a class. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Now, what brings you to the G Factor? Oh, you're in search of your old mommy? No. Don't worry about it. I touch everybody's punani punocha. Okay, don't be afraid. We both have the same thing. It's okay. Now, go get changed. Well, you can't wear that. What, are you old or something? So.
And then
That's Maria.
Maria. And then Maria goes on to really teach this class, and she gives a demonstration, and Chrystee becomes Maria. And it really is fascinating. You know what's so beautiful is that when you go to see a performer and they have the skill set of which the character is supposed to be apt at, which leads me to talking about Natasha's voice.
Oh.
Now, Natasha, I don't know how many people are really aware of your singing capability. And there is a song that you do in the show. Now, is that someone's song? Did you write that song?
That is someone's song.
Okay.
That is a song from the Color Purple.
Oh,
so I just chose the end of that song to fit into that part of my show.
Well, it's beautifully sung.
Thank you.
Beautifully sung. And there's also something that I was able to identify that physically, when you begin to, because we see you in the studio, Chrystee, and I'll tell you something just as an anecdote. Chrystee came, she's going to be doing a feature film, and a lot of people know that I'm also a cowboy. And so Chrystee found me to come and take riding lessons. And she did very, very well for her first time out, And but again, that takes a certain physicality, comfortable with your body. Mm-hmm. The same thing you possess, Natasha, when you are doing your character, when she's going in some of the most painful, deep parts of her life, it ultimately begins to consume you physically. Yes. And I don't know if you've ever, obviously when you're doing it you can't see it, but I must tell you, it is really another part of the fascinating journey, because it gave it texture in a way that didn't just, I wasn't just hearing what you were saying, but I could see, just in the way and feel in the way you moved when you have to go to visit your dad at his office. Mm-hmm. And just with that moment of extending your hand to that door and the trepidation that you dealt with how do I open this door, because I'm about to deal with something that I never thought I could deal with. The anger is there, the passion is there. So the physicality in which you do,
Yeah, that came from something called the Runt Method. My director, Michael Phillip Edwards, he and I went through that, and I don't realize how physical my piece is until I'm done. The first night I performed that piece, I felt like I had done 1,000 sit-ups and I didn't know why. Mm-hmm. And he kept telling me, work your core, work your core. But I have to release everything. I think when you do a show, you have to be very vulnerable, and not just in your words and the story you're telling, but also in body, so that it can stay authentic.
Yes.
And I think that's what I take on.
Ladies, would you be kind enough? Audience, I really would like you to go and support this. This effort is brilliant. These women deserve to have an audience, and it will be healing. Would you tell us a little bit about how we can come and see you this weekend?
Oh, yes. Come on out and see us this weekend. We are up on Saturday at 8 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. We are at a theater called Open Stage West. That is just on the other side of the hill, but it's still considered Los Angeles, 91423. The address of Open Stage West is 14366 Ventura Boulevard. It's on the corner of Beverly Glen and Ventura, and we are on the second floor. You can get tickets in advance through brown paper tickets, and you can show up at the door and take your chances if we're not sold out.
Yeah.
Sunday, which has happened. Sunday, we will be doing a Q&A, a talk back. So all the questions you have for us, just bring it on. We'll be ready and waiting.
And if you are not in the Los Angeles area, make sure that you check us out, because I'm sure at some point in time on our Facebook, we will probably be in your city. Or let us know if you would like for us to come to your city as well.
Yes, let us know if you'd like for us to come to your city. Evolution of a Love Addict will be in San Jose November 24th. So if you're in the Bay Area, you can check that out. And I'll also be in New York November 16th at 42nd Street.
Which I just came from.
She just came back. I'm following in your footsteps.
And we want to send out our love and support to our New Yorkers and all of those on the East Coast who were at the mercy of Hurricane Sandy. You know, it was quite devastating. I mean, I'm originally from New York, and so looking at areas that I know to be submerged underwater for me was completely devastating. So,
donate.
You know,
go out and donate.
Please. I had a lot of friends that came to the show that particular weekend. The following week, this happened, and so I just want to send a little love out there and a little support as well.
Absolutely.
To them as well.
Absolutely. Also, let me take the time to congratulate all of the winners last night at the NAACP Theater Awards.
Congratulations.
You know, my good buddy Jim Pickens Jr. was given the Trailblazer Award, which I received. So humbly, I'm thrilled that they would give it to me last year. And so I want to shout out to my brother Jim Pickens and congratulate him and all of the winners last night and those that are recipients of those great theater awards. Theater is important, is it not?
Yes, it is. It is very important.
Yes.
Theater is important.
It lives. It breathes.
And
it heals.
It has that power. And it's alive. It's right there. It's a person right there. The beauty of theater is that and the challenge is that it lives in the hearts and minds of those who see it. So we've got to make sure that we continue to support it and continue to come out and really let these artists know that their work is really something that it matters to them and to us. You know, I'm just so excited to have you guys in studio, and you know. There was something that we talked about briefly, and I just wanted to not let it go by the wayside. And we talked about the whole getting assistance if there is an issue, because relationships are important. You know, now, you know, I watching the piece, one would beg the question, wow, man, them sisters been through a lot. You know, are they really going to be somebody that I want to be down with, you know? Well, I happen to know a friend of mine who happens to be in a relationship with one of our guests.
Yes.
And, you know, he's a great man unto himself, a wonderful producer. We have worked together. He produced a show that I did called The Ghost of Summer. And that was a one-man show. And I was surprised and pleasantly surprised to see him, not because of the show, but because I had not seen him and had lost contact, and I'm happy to be in contact with him. But I can tell you that he's a man of great quality and therefore is very happy with the present relationship. So clearly the evolution of this, you know, of the work that these ladies are doing is also manifesting itself in their lives.
Yes.
And so don't be mistaken, cat brothers, if you come and you see this woman going through these things, these two ladies, and going, well, you know what, I got to reconsider, because you know, I mean, the truth of the matter is that it's brilliant, which leads me to another subject matter. Next week on A Masterpiece Theater, I'm going to have some guests in the studio that are doing what I think is a great companion piece to this, because it's called It's a Man's World. And these men, after I left you guys, I went over to the Nate Holden Theater, and they were doing a staged reading of It's a Man's World. And Leo Breckenhurst and T.C. Carson directed it. We all remember T.C. Carson from his work. on numerous television series. But he's directing now, and so we're thrilled. We want to give a shout out. So please, next week, tune in, same time, same place here on Masterpiece Theater, as we have the gentlemen in to talk about their experience from men. Because again, if we're not talking to one another about these issues, we're not going to get past them. You know, ladies, I cannot tell you how honored, pleased, and pleasured it's been to have you in the studio.
Yes.
Please give us one more time where we can see you guys this weekend.
This weekend, Open Stage West Theater, 14366 Ventura Boulevard, the corner of Beverly Glen and Ventura, the second floor. Saturday at 8 p.m., Sunday at 3 p.m. We look forward to seeing you there.
Yes, and please, guys, you got to go upstairs. It's a little interesting to find. I mean, I was walking, and then I heard Chrystee say, "Obba!" And I turned around, and then
she was way louder than that.
She waved me upstairs.
Fabulous.
So just remember, you got to go in. It's like in a sort of a plaza area.
Yes.
Go in and go upstairs to the second floor, and you'll get an opportunity to see these beautiful women. Please, as a final note, today, November 6th, we have got to get out and vote. Please do your part.
Yes.
It is necessary. As I said earlier in the show, it's probably one of the most important relationships that you'll have in terms of telling the story that you want to be told by who you put in office and for the things that you vote for. Remember, Obba Babatunde always says, as you do anything in life is how you do everything. I thank you so much. God bless each and every one of you, and I look forward to seeing you back here on Masterpiece Theater. Masterpiece Theater is brought to you by Roscoe's Media Center, sponsored by Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles, the makers of Pitbull Energy Drink. The show is engineered by Poetess, written by Obba Babatunde and Kennedy Goldsby, and produced by Paul Goldsby, executive producer, The Good Herb.